Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. We are working today from the Forks and Knives Flavor Cookbook, and we are making the Ethiopian red lentil stew. So this is going to be super simple today because I went grocery shopping a day and a half ago and I did a bunch of prep work ahead of time. And so this is something that you can also do if you are in a big hurry. So today I'm making a double batch in one pot and a single batch in another pot. So ahead of time, I have onion and garlic pre-minced and chopped because this recipe calls for 12 cloves of garlic per batch that you're making. So it's 24 and then 12 more, it's 36 cloves of garlic. It's basically 3 bulbs of garlic, just so much. So our first job is to combine that onion, garlic, and actually garlic with a cup of water. So I started to heat my pots on the stove, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of water. And you'll recall with this that in these whole plant-based cooking books, they're looking to do a little bit less on the oil. And so instead of sauteing utilizing oil, there's sauteing that's happening utilizing water. It doesn't quite come out with the same flavor. I wouldn't want to kid you on that. But enough, right? It's for our everyday cooking, it's going to get the job done. So here I have maybe a half of a large onion, and that goes in with the bulb of garlic, which, just to say, yum. It's going to smell amazing. There's some really cool flavors going on in this dish that I'm really excited about. And then my second one has roughly 1.5 large onions and 2 bulbs of garlic. So I think the recipe called for 2 cups of onion in a recipe, and so I kind of like measured 1 and said, okay, that's what that's gonna look like. But it's tough. Sometimes, you know, you're working with fresh ingredients and you have nothing else you were gonna do with that, you know, quarter of an onion or something. I would never. I would just go ahead and throw the whole thing in. So let me grab my garlic. You'll be over in the dark for just a moment. So I have shared with you that sometimes there's this tube-based stuff. So I have a tube-based ginger. You can peel ginger, you can cut skin off, you can chop it around. This is one of those things where, for me, I will cook if I don't have to do that with ginger. I just don't enjoy it. So we need 2 tablespoons of this ginger per batch. That being said, I love to create like a ginger orange tea. Some friends of mine taught me this long ago. You take like orange peel and some ginger root and maybe a stick of cinnamon, and you are good to go. Like, you just boil that stuff up and you get this really flavorful thing. So there are ways in which I enjoy stuff like that, just not all the ways. And I think it's important to know yourself. So let me see here. That is going about 10 minutes till the onions are tender. And then you're going to add the spice blend and the cardamom to kind of get those spices going. So I'm going to grab this thing called a Berbere, or Berbere. I have no idea how you say it, seasoning. But Berbere, let me see if I can. So B-E-R-B-E-R-E. And then cardamom. So these are going to go in when we're ready. They get an early show into the pot because it's going to allow them to release some of their flavors. And the same with the ginger. So you may have noticed I didn't measure my ginger. It called for 2 tablespoons per. I've measured in the past and said, oh, okay, that's about what a tablespoon looks like. And now I just squeeze. And if it's a little bit more, I've never been sad about that. And I would highly doubt it's ever a little bit less. But my seasoning here is new, so. So I have also cut up cabbage for this recipe already. And I did that because I was making a coleslaw for the weekend. And it was just easier to say, let me do all of this cabbage cutting at the same time. So I took through a food processor, green cabbage, red cabbage, some Brussels sprouts. I made an extra Brussels sprout side dish because what was I going to do with the leftovers if they weren't already cooked? And I diced up cabbage for today, and then I grated carrot for that coleslaw recipe as well. That means, also when I got home tomorrow, I'm making this purple hobos thing. I put my beets right in a pot when I got home. I boiled them, they cooled. The skin just slips off, and I diced them up. I've basically got Monday and Tuesday squared away. So, 2 to 3 tablespoons of Berbere. Now, I can tell you what is in Berbere because there is a recipe for it on the next page. So, what is in it is paprika, allspice, cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, coriander, nutmeg, turmeric, fenugreek, and cayenne pepper. And I think the fenugreek is where I thought if I had to find that, I might not be able to do it. Everything else would probably be on hand. And making your own spice blend is a beautiful thing. But this isn't going to be really spicy, which is what I wanted to know. Is it sweet or is it spicy? It's going to have some amount of spice to it, but not intensely. So I'm going to do, if it says 2 to 3, I'm going to do 2. Because again, we're cooking with young children in mind. And sometimes young children have something to say about what you're doing. And then the cardamom is a ½ teaspoon per batch. So if you've been watching, you'll remember I like to keep a set of teaspoons and tablespoons available for dry ingredients and wet ingredients so that I can always do both. I have measuring cups in a similar fashion. I keep 2 on hand so I can have one for wet and one for dry, and I'm not spending all this time cleaning and wiping and blah blah blah. I can just move really fast, which is my preferred way. Many of you who know me will know, and if you didn't know, now you know. I love to go fast. So I'm just going to give these a turn while my onion is cooking. I'm not feeling particularly afraid of like, is that onion going to get cooked? Because we're going to be adding lentils to these pots and they're going to cook another 20 minutes. So that onion is getting cooked one way or the other. But we're allowing some of these early seasoners to get a chance to release their aromatic flavors and start to do their thing. Also, I'm working on a stove that has a rapid boil side. So I have turned this way down to like 2 once it's going, and I'll probably even end up at low because that pot just goes. And for whatever reason, if that burner is on, this burner is also more intense. So get to know your kitchen. With these types of pots too, the directions will tell you that they don't have to be at the highest setting, that they distribute heat so you can be at the medium. Kind of reading those things and knowing ahead of time. If I'm just using a regular pot that I got at like TJ Maxx or something, I'm going to probably go ahead and put it on high and not think twice about it. But maybe that's not good for that one either. So my spice blends are in, and now it's going to be time to add lentils and water to the whole story. So it calls for 2 cups of lentils to 4 cups of water. So basically double. And these are red lentils, just to say. So I love, oh, welcome to Halloween. Some things that are getting ready for the kiddos. So I love red lentils. I love brown lentils too, as it turns out. I love yellow split peas, the whole bit. But red lentils have kind of an orangish hue to them. They're smaller and they cook faster, so you kind of want to know that ahead of time. Because I'm doing these double batches, one is going to get 2 cups and the other is going to get 4. And I sometimes find in the grocery stores that I need to buy some of these types of ingredients ahead of time because maybe people bought out all of the red lentils one day for no good reason. Just, I mean, clearly because they wanted to make it hard on you, right? So sometimes I will buy them in advance and have a bunch on hand. So even this week when I did my shopping, I didn't have to get these. They were already at the house. And actually so much so that I didn't have any more space for buying tons and tons of more dried beans. So I have a whole drawer full of dried chickpeas and lentils and yellow split peas, in part because this is about 3 cups. I don't want to think on a weekend, oh, I wish I could have made something, and now I can't. So I'm gonna come and get some water. So I'm gonna need 4 cups, and then I'm gonna need 8 cups. is my story. So I keep 2 of these glass measuring cups on hand. One is a 2-cupper and one is a 4-cupper. That works well for me. They also make them in 8, and they probably make them in 1. So, you know, you do what you need to do in order to make your life work. But I have found, and the glass is great because it dries so much faster, which is something I have really appreciated about glass. Like, as we've worked with a lot of kids stuff, having things like, you know, plastic containers that their lunch would go in or whatever, those things do not dry. You have to sit there with a towel and make it happen. So I have found I really enjoy going back to the way things were and utilizing old school glass and metal, things like that, that are apparently better for the environment. You don't have to worry about which rack you put them on in the dishwasher. And when they come out of the dishwasher, they come out dry, or I don't have to wash them. Like with some of my, like you saw me take that onion and garlic out of plastic. We've inherited some things like that, or we had bought them before we were being plastic conscious. So we keep using them. We don't just dish them or whatever. But I'm going to wash those by hand because I hate how they dry, even on the top rack where they're supposed to be. So that's kind of my story there. Okay, so my lentils go in. They're going to cook completely for 20 minutes while you stir occasionally. So what I'm going to do is set my timer. I've turned my heats up just a little bit so that they can start to boil. And then once they've started to boil, I'm going to turn that heat back down. But rather than us chill out, what I'm going to do is like go ahead and pause, and then we'll come back for the next steps after that 20 minutes has happened. So I'll talk to you soon. Hey everybody, we are back. So I have about 5 minutes to go before these are ready for the next step. In the meantime, I went ahead and started some quinoa. So this stew is going to be served. So if I could just show you a little bit. These are going to be kind of a thicker stew, and we're going to serve them over a rice or a quinoa. So I've made quinoa because we have rice coming up later in the week. And the thing with a lot of these dishes that are whole plant, sometimes people wondered, how could you be full? What I learned was that, oh my gosh, the way that people do it is they add a staple item to it. So that stew or that chili, your chili might be served over black rice or a sweet potato, and your something like this, a lentil stew, is going to get served over a rice or a quinoa. It's going to kind of keep things fresh too, because whatever you choose, if you chose one thing one time, you might choose something else the next to make it really fun. So these get 2 cups of cabbage per batch, and at that point, so I'm going to tell you, I always err on the side of more vegetables. I kind of feel like it's a cabbage, it's going to cook down. So I'm going to go ahead and take, you know, more than 4 cups to that one and add even more to this one, and then go back and add more. I'm not going to save this cabbage for anything. I made a big thing of coleslaw before. So no harm, no foul when you are doing something like that. The lemon juice is, I think, a tablespoon. Yeah, a tablespoon per. So 1 and then 2 for this one because it's a double batch. And then the recipe says salt. How complicated and unhelpful. For something like this, I would say maybe do like 3/4 in your single batch, and maybe do 1.5 in your double batch. So again, if you're cooking from the How Not to Die cookbook, they go with no salt. My family can't do it. I've tried. We end up getting out a salt shaker. I don't even know. I almost feel like probably more salt ends up on the food that way than if I would have just added a little bit of salt. But cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable. Cruciferous vegetables are so good for you. So red cabbage, green cabbage, Brussels sprouts. You want to try to get a cruciferous vegetable into your diet every single day that you possibly can. Because they hold so many vitamins, so much nutrition. So that same thing is true for leafy greens, by the way. So what's it, like spinach, the collard greens. I'm going to turn this down because it's going to start to stick otherwise. Even lettuce is considered a leafy green, but the more color that you see in something, so if I added red cabbage to this, we'd actually get more vitamins and minerals than if we didn't. But, you know, variety is the spice of life, and it's fun to cook with a little bit of variety. I can know that this isn't going to be the most beautiful dish in the book because they didn't take a picture of it with the recipe. I feel like the most beautiful dishes get pictures. But I can know, even though it's not the most beautiful dish, that it's going to be super tasty because those spices, that combination of the paprika with the sweeter spices like cinnamon and whatnot, oh my goodness, so good. And it's going to be a stick to your ribs. Lentils have great protein. The quinoa has great protein. So you're going to get a really good protein meal. For those of you who might be worried about flatulence, I have found the more that you eat healthy, the lesser the struggle is with the flatulence. Sometimes I think your body has to work a few things out, and then it kind of gets back on board with you. But if you're really worried about it, they sell things like Beano and gas relief and chewable tablets. Or you can make dishes like this on a night where you don't have to go anywhere. Sometimes that's the way to go. But so tasty. Oh my gosh, just a party in your mouth. Now I'm going to add, this is mostly going to be flavored with cilantro on top if you want it. But I have this tube of pre-done cilantro. I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm also going to add cilantro into the mix here. And it's going to flavor, but in really subtle ways. So if you have people that you're cooking for who don't like cilantro, this is going to be so tiny and so subtle that they're not going to be freaked out about it. But if you do like cilantro, putting that on top, the fresh cilantro, which is what, you know, we're going to do in our house, so beautiful, gives it that pop, and it's a really nice potent flavor on top in a way that is not true when you do it this way. Mommy. Hi.
Mommy's still working.
Okay, I'll be right there. Also with our quinoa, we find that, I found in my house anyways, the way to do quinoa is to season it. Don't just stick it in the pot and then go, I don't like the taste of this, right? So add a little vegetable stock if you are whole plant, or chicken stock if you're not. Put in a touch of salt, put in a touch of seasonings. When I was making quinoa as a side dish, I would add in some like sauteed veggies and all of that. Oh, there. So I'm going to change this timer now to like 5 minutes. And when this is all done then, right, so I've got something that I can let cool a little bit. I could reheat. I could put it in the fridge and serve it another day. So many options, but the same with your quinoa. So you want to store your quinoa or your rice, put it in a container, put a little water in with it. Don't like fill it to the top, just like a sprinkle of water. If you put rice in the fridge or quinoa in the fridge with no water, it gets kind of dry and hard and not very palatable when you try to heat it up. But if you put a little bit of water in with it and then you put it in the fridge, it'll stay nice.
Bottle.
So come here.
Okay.
So that is my recommendation. Can you say hi? Hi. So I'm going to let these cook for another 5 minutes, but that is dinner. The quinoa is heating. This is on the stove. You could either chop up your cilantro and eat right now, or like we are, we're going to eat in shifts tonight. Some people are going to eat at different times. That can easily go and get heated in the microwave or reheat a little bit on the stove, and you're good to go. And I love meals like that I can do really fast, that can be heated when people want it, and they still get a nutritious meal. So thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you later. Can you say bye? Bye!
Bye, Mommy.
Yes, and you.